Hola, buenas noches. Un cordial saludo desde Cine Club. Lon Chaney, uno de los más famosos y polifacéticos actores del cine mudo americano, nació en 1883 en una familia de padres sordomudos, por lo que para comunicarse con ellos tuvo que utilizar la mímica y la expresión corporal, habilidades que tiempo después le ayudarían mucho en su carrera cinematográfica. El joven Chaney abandonó muy pronto los estudios para entregarse al cuidado de sus padres hasta que decidió, en compañía de su hermano, dedicarse al teatro. Llegó a Hollywood en el año 1915 y de ser en principio un simple figurante, pasó a conseguir una extraordinaria fama como protagonista de películas de terror en las que conseguía cambiar su físico de una forma realmente impresionante, sirviéndose del maquillaje y de las prótesis. Y tal fue su éxito como transformista que le valió el apodo de El hombre de las mil caras, sobrenombre utilizado como título de una película biográfica de 1957 que narraba la vida de este gran mito del cine fantástico que falleció en 1930 de un cáncer de garganta. Según los historiadores cinematográficos, su influencia fue realmente notoria en ese género y alcanzó a nombres como Boris Karloff y Bela Lugosi, los continuadores de la escuela de Lon Chaney, quienes sin duda deben casi todo a este artista que creó en la pantalla a criaturas tan dispares como el fantasma de la ópera y el Jorobado de Notre, la película que vamos a ver esta noche en Cine Club. El Jorobado de Notre se rodó en 1923 y costó más de $1 millón, una cifra fabulosa en aquellos días que fue principalmente utilizada en la meticulosa construcción de los grandiosos decorados que evocaban el París de 1482 y también en la contratación de miles de extras para las escenas de acción. Esta película sigue fielmente la conocida novela escrita por Víctor Hugo, centrada en un jorobado de repulsiva presencia y gran corazón, enamorado de una bonita muchacha a la que protege. La crítica de entonces elogió esta obra, aunque eso sí, reconoció que algunos de sus momentos resultaban bastante desagradables. Asimismo, fue muy generosa con el sensible trabajo de Mr. Chaney y con la impecable caracterización creada por el propio actor en colaboración con los especialistas de la Universal. Un empeño que aún hoy en día sigue causando admiración y que, pese a los adelantos técnicos, no ha sido superado. Bien, pues ya les dejamos que disfruten la velada con El Jorobado de Notre, pero antes de su proyección, el eminente cineasta Orson Welles les dará sus impresiones sobre esta obra inmortal del cine mudo.
Susan.
Good evening. This is Orson Welles introducing this festival of great films of the silent years and bringing you this time a picture I'm looking forward very much to seeing again. One of my favorites. Starring, I think, the most underrated of all the great tragic actors in the history of the cinema, Lon Chaney. He was an extraordinary fellow. He began as a stagehand in a downtown theater in Los Angeles and then got to be a member of I don't know in what capacity, of a film crew in one of the studios, and he was mad keen on makeup, and he used to put on strange makeups and walk around and try to get a chance to break into the acting business. He did get the break, and he did become one of the great stars. He was known as the Man of 1,000 Faces, a title which I think comes originally from Frigoli, who was a famous quick change artist in the vaudeville years. But Chaney was a great deal more than a makeup artist. He was an actor of great power, enormous eloquence. I've said he was underrated. I think most of the actors in the history of movies are underrated. We talk too much about directors, perhaps, and not enough about actors. Certainly I've never heard a tribute to Chaney of anything like the dimensions he deserves. Before he achieved stardom, Cheney traveled a long road of bit roles and character parts, usually villainous, before he achieved recognition as the fake cripple in The Miracle Man. Other bizarre roles followed, typically in The Shock. He played a cripple whose deformity warps his mind and drives him to crime. Untypically, he was allowed a reformation and even a happily married fade-out with the leading lady. Such luck was rare, however. Usually, as in the famous Phantom of the Opera, his ugliness revolts the heroine, who cannot see the gentleness beneath his distorted face. Died as much from unrequited love as from the well-buried physical deaths his writers conjured up for him. What Cheney innovated in films was the idea that a monster could be a creature of pathos, that something incredibly ugly could be also an object of pity and human sympathy. And this idea has been carried on. We even felt sorry for King Kong, if you remember, beating his chest on the top of the Empire State Building. It's become one of the main lines of movie storytelling, that idea. And it comes from Cheney. Cheney had a great tragic mask. No matter how many masks he put on, there was that great face under it, of marvelous eyes. His most extraordinary creation as a makeup artist was perhaps the Phantom of the Opera, which is the most horrific mask ever seen on the screen, I think. But in The Hunchback, he was not merely horrific, he was exactly what the Hunchback ought to be. Exactly what he was in the Victor Hugo novel, a sort of human gargoyle who looked as though he'd climbed down off the front of the Cathedral of Notre Dame. And with all that enormous weight, I think it was 70 pounds that he carried, of weight to make himself a cripple, and all that mass of heavy makeup. In those days, there wasn't the sponge rubber and the other things that were developed later. It was very much harder to do an effective makeup job. With all of that glued onto him and limping under all of that, there's still a performance. It's not simply somebody running around in disguise. It's a huge performance, I think. Entirely satisfactory in its own terms, and of course totally dims the rest of the picture, which is full of the kind of second-rate Griffith, or rather Cecil B. DeMillinery, which dates rather quickly, but not this performance of Cheney's. I do think you'll enjoy it. Just one thing I forgot to mention about Cheney. It's rather famous, rather well known. He was the child of deaf-mute parents, and in order to communicate with them, he had had to learn mime, really, because he could only speak to them with his hands and his face, and that's supposed to have had a lot to do with his gifts as a silent actor. And I think that's one of those famous theories that's true.
El mayor accidente nuclear de la historia tiene nombre propio: Chernóbil. La 2 dedica su noche temática a un peligro que no cesa: